minute. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I think everybody ready for meditation today. First of all, how many are new meditator today? 1, 2, 3. No, just only 3. Okay, that's fine. I will start with welcome all of you to attend Tuesday meditation class. And I would like to tell you about our 5 axis. We have 4 5 axis. So over there you can see the side, yeah, and there. Another 2 behind you, yeah, on the left hand side and the right hand side. Our toilet for the gentleman is on the over there, yeah, on my left hand side, and for lady on the right hand side. Okay, our meditation today, we will meditate about 30 minutes, and then our teaching monk, Venerable Dr. Pra Nicholas Thanisaro. He's very, very experienced monk and expert monk as well. So he's going to lead you to meditate. And after that, he will allow you to have about 10-15 minutes break. But so no one wants to go for break. And he would like to continue listening to Luang Pi Nicholas Dhamma talk. Anyway, please feel free, yeah, to ask any question. And before we are going to pay homage to the Lord Buddha and to pay homage, to pay respect to Venerable Monk, I will lead you. If you are not ready to do, don't worry, just observe. Okay? And please, if you feel aches and pain, please don't point your feet to the teaching monk or the Lord Buddha. You can point it on your sides, or you can adjust your position. Okay. Okay. So may I invite Prajan, Venerable Dr. Nicholas. Please pay homage to the Lord Buddha together by bowing 3 times. Bow, bow, bow. Please pay respect to our teaching monk by bowing 3 times. Bow, bow, bow.
So, not to be put off, welcome everyone to the Tuesday evening class. And before we start today, I will go very briefly over meditation technique so that those of you who are new can be on the same page as those who have come before. With meditation, we're working with a part of ourselves that is often neglected. And the reason it's neglected is that we are not able to see it most of the time, but we certainly have a feeling about where it might be, because for much of our lives it is distracted away from where we are by all the busy things around us in our lives. So whether it's people demanding our attention or many devices and screens we have in our lives, then our awareness or our attention is always out there on one thing after another. Those who make action movies know this very well, and they know to change the picture every 5 seconds, just in case you look away. And you might think, well, it's good to have something to stop us from getting bored in our lives, but at the end of the day, it's actually quite exhausting for us. And it's not only exhausting, but it's almost like it leaves a hollow space inside us where we understand more about the world around us than we understand about ourselves. So if you're talking about a sense of meaning in life or a sense of worth or individuality, then often these things get missed out in the busyness with which we surround ourselves. So meditation offers an alternative to this by gathering up our awareness or our attention from all those other things in the outside world to come back to a space within our body. And in this respect, there is a special place within us which is particularly efficient if we can manage to realign our awareness with that point, and that is a place down on the solar plexus, so where you can see a little spot flashing there, or roughly in that general area. And the idea of bringing our awareness to this point is that for as long as the mind or the awareness can remain in that point, then it can somehow recharge the batteries of the mind. It's like coming back home to its charging cradle, at least for a time before it goes back out to meet the challenges of the outside world. Different methods of meditation have different ways to grab the mind and bring it back to that point. And one of the more common ones, which you may have heard of, would be focusing on the breath, because the breath is a column of air that goes in and out between your nose and this place down inside us. If you can get your awareness to stay on your breath, then at least it's going to be within the space of your body for as long as the two are in the same place. The problem with the breath, though, is that it's always on the move. So within our own tradition here at this meditation center, we make it even simpler by working with some sort of imaginary picture or feeling in the mind instead of the breath. And the reason for that is that we can keep it down at this point in the solar plexus without it moving all the time. So the sort of picture you might like to think of is something like a picture of the sun shining, or a full moon, or a bright shining star, or a diamond, or something like that. Something bright and clear is generally something which is easy to remember. If the mind wanders off from that, then you just bring it back each time. And if you're new to meditation, then you might need to be quite persistent in this. Each meditation we do consists of 2 preliminaries, which are firstly making sure we're comfortable. And part of this is being in a good meditation posture, so either sitting on a straight back chair or sitting cross-legged on the floor, and generally with our hands together, the index finger of the right hand up against the thumb of the left hand, and our hands just resting palm upwards in our lap, or some looser equivalent. And generally we make sure all the muscles of our body are relaxed before we start the meditation. The second preliminary is making sure we are in a relaxed mental state, clearing the mind as much as we can of any clutter in our mind, and also putting the mind in a positive frame of mind. And only then do we do this exercise with maintaining an inner object. So usually visual, but some people work better with a feeling, as if they feel the picture rather than seeing it. And if you have thoughts coming up in your mind, you can do your best to ignore them. But if you find that that isn't working for you, then you may need to go one step more intense, which is to hear the sound of a mantra passing through the mind, and a suggested mantra is there for you, Samma Arahang, which means a pure state of mind achieved in the proper way. But if you don't like that particular word, then you can make up your own one, something positive, something easily memorable, maybe something from your own faith tradition, something that's inspiring to you. But you hear the sound of those words as if they come up from the same place as that inner picture which I was talking about earlier. Far so good? So normally on a Tuesday we meditate for about a half an hour. So if you'd like to make yourself comfortable for that now, and we'll sit for meditation together. You'd like to start by settling yourself down into a comfortable position for your meditation, closing your eyes very gently, closing them in much the same way you might close your eyes to go to sleep. We slow ourselves down by taking a few deep breaths to ourselves, breathing in to the full extent of our lungs, and then breathing slowly and smoothly out again. Again, we breathe in the cool, refreshing air from around us. And as we breathe out, we may feel that we are letting go of any previous worries or concerns that we may have had. Each time we sit for meditation, we take a few moments to scan down through the whole of our body, making sure each and every muscle is relaxed as we go. So we relax ourselves, starting with the muscles of our forehead, releasing any tension in the muscles there. Before moving slowly on down to relax the muscles of our eyebrows and our eyelids. Even the way we close our eyes should be as gentle as possible. We allow the muscles of our face to become soft, taking care that we're not gritting our teeth together, and that our jaw is also relaxed. We move on down, this time relaxing the muscles of our neck, of our shoulders, and if our shoulders are at all tense, then we allow them to drop to their natural height. Before relaxing the muscles of our arms, our forearms, and then our hands and fingers, so that as our hands rest in our lap, they seem to do so almost weightlessly. Then we continue by relaxing all the muscles of our torso, our chest, trunk, and abdomen, taking special care that our stomach isn't at all tense. Before relaxing the muscles of our legs, all the way down to our feet and our toes. until eventually all the way from the top of our head right the way down to the tips of our toes, we'd be fairly satisfied that there's no remaining part of our body with any sort of stress or tension anymore. And having relaxed our body, we should find that we are left with a feeling as if it seems to have melted away into the atmosphere around us, leaving no more worries about our body anymore, in a way that we can turn our attention inward to the feeling on the inside of us, a feeling of warmth and well-being, a feeling of inner peace. And this inner feeling, by any other name, we could call our state of mind. And it's also something that can be relaxed further to good effect in preparation for the meditation ahead. But the way we tend to relax the mind is by letting go of all the normal things that we tend to worry about in our lives. Whether it be thoughts of work, friends, family, or studies, regrets about the past, or speculations about the future. If we're able to shed all these possible sources of chatter in the mind, before long we'll find our attention settling back into the moment, into the present time, and on the task in hand. Reminding ourselves that we have nowhere to go and nothing to do. And meditation is what we're actually here for. And if we're able to bring our attention back from 1,000 different things in the outside world to a place inside us, which is almost like a bunker. It can be a place of shelter or a refuge for the mind from all the unpleasantness in the outside world. A safe haven for the mind. And if we can bring the mind back in its entirety, it's as if we have a certain distance from the external circumstances in our lives. But with that also a sense of freedom for the mind, a lightness, a sense of the mind being self-sufficient somehow in its own happiness. And if we're able to engage with this more and more on the inside, before long we'll have the feeling as if the same sense of joy and happiness, starting from a single place on the inside, will start to fill the whole of our body and mind in a way that leaves no space in the mind for any other sort of thought. And when we feel refreshed and relaxed, both in body and in mind, very gently, using no effort at all, we imagine that inside our body is just an empty space, a hollow cavity, with no organs or tissues, muscles or bones. And inside this empty space of our body, somewhere in the area of our abdomen, we remember back to that picture of a bright, shining sun, which we imagined a few moments ago. But this time, instead of being in the sky, the picture of the sun appears in miniature, shining at the center of our body, shining with a cool, clear light, a light with a softness similar to that of the moon, more than of the sun itself. We don't worry too much about whether the actual picture of the sun is very clear or not. Even if it's vague, we accept it anyway. And in this way, we allow the picture of the sun to become clearer on its own and in its own time. If we should find that our attention wanders off onto other things, each time we realize, we simply bring our attention back again to that picture on the inside as before. If it wanders, we bring it back, and each time we bring it back, it will become a little bit easier to keep it there the next time round. As for the possible problem of there being thoughts in the mind, for some people who are not too troubled by thoughts, it is sometimes possible simply to ignore the thoughts and avoid giving them even the time of day, in which case they tend to die down by themselves. However, for those who are new to meditation, or who find that there are so many thoughts in the mind that it's hard to know where to even start ignoring them, it may be better just to start with the use of the mantra, hearing the sound of those words coming up from the center of your bright object, with the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, over and over again, lightly, gently and continuously, helping to lead the mind deeper at the center, while freeing the mind of any interrupting thoughts. The two things, being the inner object and the sound of the mantra, will help each other hand in hand, helping the mind to stay for longer and longer periods of time at the center. If the picture changes, we follow it in its new form. There's no need to change it back again. If the picture disappears, you can think of a new one. Otherwise, we simply follow the way the inner experience in the mind evolves, observing without a mental commentary, without judging our experiences, without getting excited by new things that happen in the mind, and not becoming frustrated if there seems to be no change. If the sounds around us are a distraction, we simply bring our attention back. If we're uncomfortable, we can move, but in doing so, we move only in a gentle way, by which we don't disturb the stillness that we've built up in the mind. So we cultivate our attention in this way, lightly and gently, for a few more moments now in silence, until we come to the appropriate time. forget if your mind wanders anywhere else. No matter whether it be to the sounds around you, sensations in your body, or thoughts in your head. As soon as you realize, always bring your awareness back again to the center of your body as before. We keep our mind always at the center of the body the whole of the time, at the center of whatever inner experience we have attained for ourselves. Whether it be a feeling of stillness inside, brightness inside, a sphere inside, or any other sort of inner experience. We place our mind gently at the center of whatever that inner experience we have achieved, allowing the mind to come to rest there at that point. And we gradually make the affirmation at our center, at all the positive energy coming to us from our meditation, help to attract into our lives all the very best of things, opportunities and people, while helping to protect us from any untoward aspects of life, leading us towards success in life, whether it be for our family, in our business lives, and giving us the encouragement and motivation we need to do the very best things in our lives. So for a few more moments we cultivate our mind on track at the center of our body, lightly, gently and continuously for a few more moments in silence, until we come to the appropriate time. Sabbe Buddha Panapata Pachekananchaya Balang Arahantanancha Te Jenara Kambandami Sapaso Sapaputtha Nupavena Sapadhamma Nupavena Sapasangha Nupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for this evening, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gradually finishing your practice. So far, so good, everyone. Newcomers, you survived it okay? Did you have something to focus on when you looked inside yourself with your eyes closed? Ish? More of a feeling? Not a picture, not a feeling? You want me to guess? Nothing there at all? So it's like a space? Couldn't quite hear. A lot of noise. Inside or outside? Inside. Oh, interesting. So maybe you are a more audio sort of person? So you can listen to the noise at your center? Is it like a mental chatter? Yeah. So samarahang? Is that at all helpful? Okay. Yeah, it could be that that is how your meditation will develop. Some people are very big on the thoughts. Sometimes it's the reason they want to start meditation at all. In which case, actually, it's quite lucky because you have a very clear indicator for when something changes for the better, because you can hear it changing. Yeah, but I would recommend a mantra, at least in the beginning, to make a space there. Yeah. So it's successful in a way. Yeah. Sometimes it's not until we listen to our mind that we realize how much is going on in there. And normally it's like that, but we just don't realize. So now we get to do something about it. Yeah. Any other meditation-related comments? Emotional? Okay. Yes. So again, trace where that feeling is, and I think you find it can come back again to your center, and it may. Yeah, it's good, and you can, on top of the picture, you can use the feeling as well. And it's sometimes the feeling can be a more accurate indicator than the picture itself in some cases. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds all positive to me. So please take it further. You both seem to know what you're doing. So today, the continuing series on enlightened living. Today I get to talk about talking. But it's sort of on the menu because over the last few weeks we have been talking about how to stand on one's own 2 feet in terms of basically earning a living and making oneself useful in the world. And over the last few weeks, the sort of things we looked at is being learned, being skillful in applying our knowledge. And then the last time we looked at having the ethical side of that to apply our knowledge in a way that brings no harm to others or ourselves. But there is one final component of this making ourselves useful, which is basically networking and communicating with other people, because we can't do everything on our own. So even if you haven't heard the previous ones, today's talk is still quite a useful one, even as a standalone, because the energy or the positive or negative nature of the things we say can have a big effect on our states of mind and on our progress in meditation by the same token. Some people might think that what you say doesn't really matter that much. It's not like going and physically harming a person, but sometimes it can be quite destructive also as well. And also within the context of Buddhism, what people say, how they say it, the truth with which they say it has always been valued very highly, because it is a religion where no one ever gets forced to do anything. So it's only by being persuasive that it can be made interesting or encouraging for other people to practice from future generations. So you could say that the only reason that we still have these teachings after 2,500 years of history is that people have been pretty good at explaining about it down the years. Yes. So it's not just a question of having something to say, but having something worth hearing, and something which might also inspire people as well. Some people wonder the sort of things to avoid, and within the tradition this is sometimes known as unwholesome speech. We know mostly about avoiding telling lies or untruths, but other things to avoid would also include divisive speech, which means turning one person against another by the things we say, so creating disharmony, saying more than we need to, so idle chatter. When we've finished saying all the useful things, we keep on talking. And harsh speech, which would be things like swearing or shouting at people. Yes. If you can choose nice things to say to people, a person lacking encouragement in their life can be restored to inspiration for their life. But an ill thought out comment can sometimes destroy a person's morale in the same token. And the problem with words is that once they're out, you can't take them back and forget about them. And this is especially clear if you write it in a message or a text or post it in a public place on the internet. It's up there for eternity sometimes. So these are some of the 4 ways to avoid. It's a good start before we start talking about some of the things that you should be encouraged to say. These are some of the things which we should avoid. And it's very easy to let things slip out of your mouth without thinking very carefully about them, and much easier than to do something violent or aggressive in other modes of interacting with the world. And I won't spend too much time on it, but although some people might say, oh, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But unfortunately, in the Buddhist scriptures, there are some fairly scary karmic outcomes of speaking badly, especially to those who are of very high virtue. So someone who's enlightened, for example, if you happen to come up with a rather destructive comment towards them, it can have quite big karmic consequences. So I'm not going to go into that too much today, but just to say that it is important for Buddhists. But on the subject of saying too much, most people have got something to say, but once they've said it all, they keep on talking. And for this reason, the people of old once observed that most things that we find useful in our life, we got two of. We got 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, because we need backup. But our mouth, we only got 1 of, which is strange because we use it for 2 things, both eating and talking. And it's not to say you shouldn't talk while you're eating or something like that, but maybe there's a message in there that maybe we should talk only the minimum we need to. Otherwise, we would have more mouths than 1. Yes. There's a nice story I like to tell. It's a historical story about someone involved in one of the Russian revolutions called Kondraty Ryleyev. And this is at the end of the period of the Tsars in Russia, going back to 1825. And once Tsar Nicholas had come on the throne, then there was a big rebellion called the Decembrist Uprising. And one of the leaders of the uprising, Mr. Kondraty Ryleyev, was caught and he was sentenced to death on the gallows. So he had the noose around his neck and the trapdoor opened. But as soon as the trapdoor opened, the rope snapped and Mr. Ryleyev fell on the ground. And mostly, if that happened to someone when they are being hanged, it would be taken as a sign of providence or heavenly will, and the man would be saved from execution, would be pardoned somehow. So Mr. Ryleyev, he got to his feet, a little bit bruised and dirtied, but believing he had been saved, he called out to the crowd, "You see, in Russia, they don't know how to do anything properly. They can't even make a proper rope." Meanwhile, the messenger was sent immediately to the Winter Palace about the failed hanging. And rather vexed by this disappointing turnaround, the Tsar nevertheless began to sign the pardon. But then he asked his messenger, did the prisoner say anything after this occurrence? And the messenger informed him that Russia doesn't even know how to make a proper rope. So the Tsar said, in that case, let us prove the contrary. And he tore up the pardon, and the next day Mr. Ryleyev was hanged again, and this time the rope didn't break. So the moral of this story is, sometimes you need to be particularly careful with sarcasm. The momentary satisfaction which you gain from a few biting words may be outweighed much later by the fallout that comes back to haunt you. In this, you might say, well, what do? Do I just keep my mouth shut? Are there some things which I should be saying? And before you go as far as to say something, maybe I should point out what speech is made up of. And there are several components which you can talk about for speech. Firstly, you can talk about the intention behind the words, which is important because sometimes the intentions could be based on greed or hatred or delusion, which would make anything that comes out in terms of words have some unwholesome ulterior motive. Next comes the words you choose to express them. They could be true or untrue, they could be polite or rude, and they could be useful or superfluous. So, lastly, you can say what you like, but there's also a fifth component, which is when you choose to say the words. Sometimes they might be true, everything perfect, but if you say them at the wrong time, they can add up to a disaster also. And this is the basis of something known as 5-star speech, which actually comes from a Buddhist teaching called the Vacha Sutta, where the Buddha recommended that anything that is blameless and praiseworthy speech ought to be spoken at the right time, spoken in truth, spoken affectionately, spoken beneficially, and spoken with a mind of goodwill. And if you want to put that in a slightly more easy way to understand, you could say that some of the things we often say don't come up to that standard of 5 stars. For example, if we say something out of anger, then we tend to miss out on the compassionate intention part. Therefore, anything comes out tends to come out wrong, like it's the anger speaking and not us speaking. White lies to small children, we might sort of cosset them by saying things like, oh, you're the most precious little boy in the world, try just to get them to stop crying. But really this is not really very effective in the long run. Otherwise they're going to get used to that sort of cosseting. Market banter, the sort of thing you hear in the marketplace, may be true, etc., but not very polite. Rather more direct than we would be aiming for. Small talk at parties, maybe just keep the conversation going, fill in the embarrassing silences, but it may not be particularly useful. The sort of people droning on and boring things just to keep the conversation going. And not speaking at the right time might be something to do with a public disgracing. If you have occasion to point out someone's faults, then maybe it would be better to call them to one side before you do that. So, for some things, 5 stars are sort of optional. But what I'm trying to say is that for speech, if you really have some high-stakes conversation which you are trying to have with a person, then you better make sure it checks out on all 5 before you say it. Otherwise, you may have a problem on your hands. To come back to the example of what we ought to be saying to our children if we are going to make it 5-star speech, some guidance which I found quite useful was how to avoid telling white lies to children, and how can we speak to them in a way that will be more sustainable in the long run as a motivation boost for children. And there have been several studies which found that feedback from teachers to students that often conveys messages that affect the students' opinions of themselves and how capable or incapable they are of academic achievement can make a big difference to their future. Certain types of praise can do more harm than good to a child's independence, learning drive, self-confidence, and resilience. And it was research from Stanford University that found that you can classify what you say in terms of the sort of mindset it encourages in the person who hears it. And two sorts of mindset. The fixed mindset is a belief that one's abilities are carved in stone and not going to change, or they're predetermined at birth, which is not what we want to encourage. Or their second possibility is the growth mindset, which is the belief that one's skills and qualities can be cultivated if we put in the effort and we persevere. So obviously this second one is what we would like to encourage in the children by the comments we make, if it's truly going to be this 5-star speech. So people with a fixed mindset tend to ignore feedback, give up easily, measure success by comparing themselves to others. By contrast, those with growth mindsets are more likely to embrace challenges and compare themselves now with how they used to be. So compare themselves to themselves. If you praise the process, for example, by saying, I love how you are very thoughtful about the colors you chose and not the outcome. So process, not outcome. The outcome might be, oh, the colors in your drawing are beautiful, you have a good eye. So the first one was how you're very thoughtful about the colors you chose. So that can be modified further in the future. Process, not outcome. It helps children to develop a growth mindset. Similarly, when parents praise the outcome, it holds the kids back from developing resilience, confidence, or a desire to learn new things. So if your goal is to support your child's learning strategies, that can lead to success. Let's say it's sports you're talking about. You have two kids on a track team. The first kid is a passionate runner, while the second one is less athletic. So the kid who loves running doesn't put much effort in, doesn't practice much, and they still win first place at almost every track meet. The second kid, they pushes themselves but gets discouraged by the fact they haven't had a win. So to praise the process and not the outcome, instead of saying congratulations, you won, to the natural runner, they should acknowledge their skill without celebrating too much what they won or praising that too much. So they should praise their skills, and skills can develop yet further. And this will help them to feel supported without suggesting they've got an innate ability as the primary factor in their success. As for the less athletic child, praise the process again. You should praise them for their hard work and perseverance. And this helps them to maintain that self-esteem and stay motivated to succeed. And it will lead them towards the growth mindset. Even the kid who's doing well, they've still got a growth mindset because they realize above what they've got, there's higher still. First, a good, skillful talk. Little story to finish up with. And it's a story not about nagas this time, about cows. Okay, yeah, a little bit easier for you to get your head around. And you know now about Jataka stories, which are previous birth stories from the Buddha. And I already told you that there are more than 500 of these previous births that are written down anyway. And generally the ones with the lower numbers are fairly low down the ladder in terms of rebirths, whereas the ones towards the end are getting quite close to enlightenment already, so slightly more esoteric ones. And here we have number 28, so pretty much entry-level ones, okay? And this one is about an ox called Nanti Visala. And in those days, animals could understand what people said to them. Maybe they still can. You reckon? Anyway, This ox called Nantivisala was particularly strong. And in order to test it out, one time the owner of the ox roped together 100 carts like a train and put the one ox on the front like a locomotive and attempted to get him to pull all these wagons along. And he could do it. He's such a strong ox. I think this one may even have been one of the Aesop's fables. Yeah. So, had miraculous strength from an early age. And when he found out that his ox could pull so many carts all at once, then the owner thought up a good scheme in order to make some money on this. So he went along to an unbelieving millionaire, I think there in the turban, cheering on from the sides, and he made the bet that his ox could pull 100 carts, whereas the millionaire bet him that he couldn't. So he lined up again all the wagons, roped them together, and then he said to the ox, "Go ahead and pull the carts, ox." And the ox didn't like the way he was spoken to. So he stubbornly refused to budge, because even oxen have feelings. So he lost his bet. Later on, however, to cut a long story short, the owner made a second bet and spoke politely to the ox and was able to win back his money. Yes. So even speaking to animals, you need to have 5-star speech sometimes as well. So just to finish off with for today, I would like to conclude by saying that if you enjoyed meditation today, I would encourage you to meditate further at home if you can. Maybe picking about 20 minutes to meditate during a time of the day when you know you will be relatively free from interruption, and a time of the day when you're not feeling too tired generally. If you start with 20 minutes, then later on, once it becomes established in your life, you can build upon that as the inclination takes you. Some people like to meditate first thing in the morning because it gives a good start to the day. Other people who have problems sleeping might like to meditate before going to sleep at night. But whatever works well for you. Some people meditate in their car in the lunch break if they have a stressful job. If you have difficulty remembering the meditation instruction, you may find the MindGem app, MindGem. You can download that for free, and you got meditation instruction or audio tracks which you can follow along with while you set a length of time for you to meditate with. Here at the center, we have meditation classes every Tuesday and Thursday evening, and usually the meditation on a Thursday evening is a little bit longer, up to 45 minutes. And apart from that, on Saturday evenings between 7 and 8, there's also a Zoom talk and a meditation online every week, which you can follow on with in the comfort of your home. Once a month on a full moon day, we have a full moon meditation, which is due to come up on the 16th of April. The next one, which we have themed the Day of Gratitude, that will be held online for sure. And as for having a in-person one here too, we'll let you know if that's also possible. And a longer-term retreat for young men. In June, we hope to hold a month-long retreat where you can try out being a monk for a month, or at the very least 2 weeks, and it will probably be held in Belgium along with all the other branches of our organization in Europe. The next weekend meditation retreats coming up in July, 8th to 10th of July. Probably here, but more details will become available closer to the time. Yes. So for today, I think I will finish there. But if there's any questions, comments, feedback at this point, I'd be very happy to hear from you.
Question today? It's all clear. Yeah. Okay. If you don't have any question, so I invite all of you to pay respect to our teaching monk by bow 3 times. Bow, bow, bow.
So may all of you be blessed with a 5-star speech in your life from now on.
Sadhu. Could you please pay homage to the Lord Buddha by bowing 3 times? Bow, bow, bow. Okay. Rejoice in all of your merit tonight. Rejoice in your merit. That means I'm very happy that all of you are happy and come to meditate together with this. This is not how many people in UK, just only minority group of you have opportunity to do so. And I hope you get some message from Prajaan. We are lucky you have 1 mouth. Though if you have 2 mouths, I can't imagine what will be going. And especially meditation, twice a day. And don't forget to do that. Continue doing that. No one can do it for you except you yourself. And good night for tonight. See you again next Tuesday or Thursday. Sadhu.